Good evening, this is the Oscar expert here with Brother Rowe. It's time to discuss the Writers Guild nominations, the WGA. They're an important writing precursor, but they also can be a little irrelevant because of how many films they disqualify every year, and this year, that is no exception. Nomadland, Minari, Mank, The Father, and Soul are all not eligible this year. Also, The Mauritanian. The reason that they're ineligible is because either these people are not WGA members or they don't meet the WGA's qualifications. So an original screenplay was Trial of Chicago 7, Promising Young Woman, Sound of Metal, Palm Springs, all films that I was predicting. And then the last slide, I couldn't tell if it was going to be Five Bloods or Judas. I went with Five Bloods because of the SAG. I was wrong. It was Judas. Celebration time.
Is that the only thing that could have possibly happened? Is just a Five Bloods or Judas there? Because I want that to be a really big deal for Judas, and I believe it is. However, if it's just between the Five Bloods and Judas, there's not that much competition, and I want to be really confident that it's going to get into the Oscar race.
Well, being Five Bloods makes me think this could happen at the Producers Guild. And I actually do think that Judas is a pretty good shot to get a Producers Guild nomination. I'll give you an example of a couple movies that got just Producers Guild. Hidden Figures, American Sniper. And they were late bloomers, as is Judas and the Black Messiah. So we're hoping on that Producers Guild nomination. I think it can beat the Five Bloods there. And maybe this is exemplary of that.
Judas has to pull through into the Best Picture race. I mean, at this point, I don't understand how it couldn't. It has amazing Rotten Tomatoes score, Metacritic score, and an A Cinema score. And it has great audience ratings, 7.9 IMDb, 93 on Rotten Tomatoes with audiences. Everything I would think I know about predicting awards would just go out the window if this movie doesn't get nominated at the end of the day.
It's like a more competitive Best Picture race than we've had in a few years.
Yeah, usually it's not ambiguous. Usually there's oh, it's a solid 9. This year, you have Judas, To Five Bloods, Sound of Metal, News of the World, I would say, The Father as well, competing for that kind of last slot. The way I want to be surprised is I want News of the World not to get into the lineup and have Judas get in. We now move to the adapted screenplay category where I think this one was more odd because the amount of ineligibilities made it possible that something like Borat would get in. So the lineup here, One Night in Miami, News of the World, Ma Rainey's Black Bottom. They all make sense. They were all predicted to get in. Then we have Borat, which kind of makes sense.
I'll tell you why that makes sense. Because the WGA are huge on comedies. It is unlike any other awards body, the amount they nominate comedies. They gave us Eighth Grade last year. Trainwreck was nominated. There are years where they nominate majority comedies, if not all, at least somewhat comedies. So Palm Springs to me was kind of a no-brainer here. And I did predict Borat to get in because comedy. They love it. The biggest surprise out of every nominee here is that The White Tiger gets in. This wasn't completely out of left field to me. It was something I was considering. I was juggling it with Hillbilly Elegy and a couple others. That felt like the accessible movies basket, I guess. And then the inaccessible movies basket, a lot of people were thinking First Cow, or I'm thinking of anything that would have an opportunity to get in here because of the ineligibility cuts. I ended up predicting First Cow. I thought it would just be a lot to reach down for a White Tiger. I should have known that they would never go for something as inaccessible as First Cow. But that is what the WGA do, honestly. Does it mean that First Cow's chances for screenplay are worse? I don't know if the WGA ever felt like they would go for a First Cow and I'm thinking of ending things. But I also think thinking those movies would get into screenplay at the Oscars is a little bit wishful thinking. Maybe we'll get what we want with First Cow, but I'm completely done thinking Charlie Kaufman is a shot here.
I am a bit surprised still that I'm thinking of ending things can't even get a slot at the WGA over The White Tiger and Borat. It's kind of sad to think that a movie like that has such an uphill battle that they can't even nominate it for screenplay. It's kind of absurd. And even the Critics' Choice can't nominate it for screenplay. I don't know what's going on.
They actually didn't send out screeners to WGA, so that's part of the reason.
Oh, well, that makes sense.
Do we still feel like News of the World is just that number 5 slot as long as Father and Nomadland are there, which seem like no-brainers?
Yeah, I think News of the World feels like a number 5 for adapted screenplay. So in terms of what was expected, it was really the Judas to Five Bloods swap that is really something to take note of. Other than that, it would have been absolutely shocking not to see News of the World here, and even Sound of Metal, just because nothing's really competing with them that closely.
Five Bloods is done for screenplay. I don't think it ever really had that much of a shot. Palm Springs, probably not. Again, that's just like their comedy thing. I would love to see it happen, but the guilds are the ones who have to redeem Judas. It's up to them. I want to see the Eddies acknowledge Judas.
And yeah, in terms of winning, I guess Trial of Chicago 7 takes the cake on that one. Unless Promising Young Woman, yeah, I guess Promising Young Woman is the asterisk there. That's what you're doing.
If Promising Young Woman wins WGA, it could be like a sign of the end times for Trial of Chicago 7, because both those movies feel like they would match up with what the Oscars do. And Adapted will be interesting because Nomadland's not here, so we get to see what the runner-up is. I think it might be One Night in Miami. Final thing to be mentioned is that there's a what if for Sound of Metal making a category shift. We saw this happen with Moonlight. We saw it happen with Whiplash. They make a last-minute category shift to adapted screenplay only at the Oscars. The reason this could happen is because Sound of Metal is technically an adaptation of an unfinished movie that Derek Cianfrance made called Metalhead, which was basically about the same thing. And I previously thought that the rule for the Academy is that if it's not released, then it doesn't qualify. But I've learned via Wikipedia that Moonlight, in fact, that was an unreleased play that was based on. They didn't even release the play, and they turned it into a screenplay, and it put them in the adapted category. So there actually is a real question mark for where Sound of Metal goes. And I think that would be the ideal situation, potentially, because it could mean kicking News of the World's ass out of there and ensuring that Judas can get an original screenplay slot.
I could easily see being disappointed by that, though. If News of the World is a stronger Best Picture nominee, then it will get nominated before The Sound of Metal does. So Sound of Metal could be in trouble either way. We don't really know.
Thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing.
What do you think WGA stands for?